The Universal Protection League had scammed hundreds of civilizations, thousands, maybe even millions. Their exact accounting was a bit fuzzy because, let's be honest, no one in their upper management had ever actually checked the books. That was beneath them. Their model was simple. Arrive at an unsuspecting planet, show up in their most intimidating spacesuits, and deliver a terrifying PowerPoint presentation about inevitable existential threats. After that, planets practically begged to be extorted. It had been this way for millennia, and it always worked. So when the UPL's elite delegation touched down on Earth, landing a sleek, chrome-covered diplomatic cruiser right outside the United Eye. Nation's headquarters in New York, they expected a routine shakedown. They were wrong. Gentle beings. Chairman Zervex-9 began in a voice that had been scientifically engineered to ooze authority. His 8 eyes blinked in what was supposed to be an intimidating, otherworldly rhythm. His robes were made of pure, liquid platinum fibers woven from the tears of underpaid bureaucrats. He was the most powerful scam artist in the known universe. "You are in grave danger." He gestured dramatically, causing his robe to shimmer in a way he was sure would strike fear into these primitive, earthbound diplomats. At the other end of the table sat Marine Captain Jack Bulldog Harrison, chewing on an unlit cigar and flipping through the UPL's contract with the same level of enthusiasm as a man reading his own tax audit. Beside him, Lieutenant Sarah Connors leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, watching the UPL delegation like a shark watching a school of really dumb fish. Sergeant Frank Red Morales, the team's cyber warfare specialist, tapped idly on his tablet. He wasn't listening. He'd already hacked into their systems. Zervex-9 cleared his throat and pressed a button on a sleek, floating holopad. A terrifying image appeared. A massive, many-tentacled monstrosity lunging toward a planet, dripping with glowing green ooze. "This is the Zarthul Devourer," he intoned gravely. "An unstoppable cosmic horror that has consumed entire worlds. Your planet is next." Silence. Then, Captain Harrison exhaled and looked at him with all the patience of a man who had spent way too much time dealing with telemarketers. "Uh-huh," Harrison said. "And, just out of curiosity, where is this Zarthul Devourer right now?" Zervex-9 was thrown off. No one had ever asked that question before. "It is lurking in the folds of space," he declared. "It could emerge at any moment. That is why—" "You got any footage of it actually eating a planet?" Harrison interrupted, flipping another page in the contract. "Not like an artist's rendering. Actual footage." Zervex-9 twitched. "We have many testimonials." "So, no footage?" Lieutenant Connors asked, her voice completely neutral. "Ah, well. You see, the nature of the beast." Sergeant Morales, who had finally decided to look up from his tablet, snorted. "Hey, boss, you're gonna love this," he muttered to Harrison. "They've got an entire department dedicated to threat simulation and galactic public relations." Harrison looked over. "Threat what?" Morales turned his screen around so they could see. He tapped a few times, and the projected image shifted. Instead of the terrifying Zarthul Devourer, they now saw a warehouse filled with rubber tentacles, high-tech fog machines, and what looked suspiciously like a poorly constructed kaiju costume. The entire room was silent. Chairman Zervex-9's 8 eyes darted toward his staff. "Wait, no. That's not supposed to be public information," Morales grinned. "Well, it is now." A low groan came from the gelatinous being beside Zervex-9, Lord High Treasurer Bluebos. The treasurer of the UPL was literally melting from stress, his semi-solid form pooling slightly across his chair. "Oh, void preserve us," he moaned. "They're actually looking at the financials." Zervex-9, now visibly sweating under his platinum robe, scrambled to regain control of the meeting. "The point remains. Your planet is unprepared for the many cosmic threats that lurk in the—" Yeah, sure. "So," Harrison said, tossing the contract onto the table. Why does this invoice have a threat mitigation service fee worth like the GDP of Canada? Zervex9 froze. Harrison leaned forward, eyes narrowing. And a galactic legal consultation fee bigger than the entire U.S. defense budget? Oh, and my personal favorite. What the hell is an existential risk surcharge? Bluebos groaned again. It's how we justify charging extra when they hesitate to sign, he mumbled, before realizing what he had just said. His gelatin form quivered in terror. Zervex9's once impeccable posture was now visibly collapsing. Listen, Captain, No, you listen. Harrison stood, towering over the delegation. You came here thinking we'd just hand over. A blank check because, what? You showed us some scary pictures and threw a bunch of buzzwords at us? Buddy, I hate to break it to you, but we're the United States Marine Corps. We don't do blind compliance. Connors stood up beside him, cracking her knuckles. We do, however, love a good audit. Morales tapped his tablet, and a massive beep filled the room as Earth's intelligence agencies officially flagged the UPL as an entity of interest. I just sent all your financials to the NSA, Morales added cheerfully. They're gonna have a lot of questions. Zervex9, whose species was physically incapable of processing this level of defiance, made a strange choking noise. But this is not how this works, Harrison smirked, leaning down until he was at eye level with the panicking alien bureaucrat. It is now. Zervex9 had dealt with many species in his career, some cowardly, some naive, some who put up a little resistance before ultimately folding under the weight of expertly crafted legalese. But never had he encountered a species that responded to intergalactic extortion with a forensic audit. As Captain Harrison loomed over him, looking entirely too pleased with himself, Zervex9 did what any self-respecting intergalactic fraudster would do when faced with an existential threat. He panicked. Be Blue Boss, he stammered, turning to his gelatinous counterpart. Activate Emergency Financial Contingency Protocol Theta. Blue Boss made a sound like a deflating balloon. Sir, that doesn't exist. Zervex9's eyes widened. What do you mean it doesn't exist? Bluebos shuddered. It was, budgeted for, but we never actually followed through on implementing it. You know, standard cost-cutting measures. You cut costs on our emergency contingency plans? Well, technically, we allocated those funds to the Deluxe Executive Spa Retreat on Ralgun 5, Bluebos admitted. It had an excellent rejuvenation mud treatment. Zervex9 twitched. He had been at this game long enough to know that when the financial books were open, the first rule of surviving a fraud investigation was to delay, deny, and, if all else failed, run. Unfortunately, running wasn't an option. The doors had been locked, presumably by these terrifyingly thorough Earthlings. Captain Harrison took a long, deliberate breath, then reached into his pocket, pulling out a heavily worn notebook and flipping it open. You know what this is? Zervex9 gulped. A book of some kind? Harrison smirked. This, my slippery little friend, is my personal checklist for ruining your day. Zervex9's 8 eyes blinked in rapid succession. Step 1. Harrison continued, licking his finger and flipping a page. We do the paperwork. That's already in motion, thanks to my good buddy Morales. Morales gave a friendly wave. By the way, all your encrypted files? Not so encrypted anymore. Oh, and your budget breakdown? I'm sending that to every single planetary government in your little racket. Bluebos let out a strangled gurgle and physically deflated like an abandoned pudding cup. Step 2, Harrison said, flipping another page. We investigate your operational infrastructure. Lieutenant Connors, who had been typing furiously on her own tablet, nodded. Done. We pulled up your internal logistics reports. By the way, congrats on that platinum level. Efficiency award from the Bureaucratic Oversight Committee. Very impressive, given that you only actually deliver about 4% of the security services you claim to provide. Zervex9 started wheezing. We provide value. We prevent threats before they emerge. Oh? Connors tilted her head. That's an interesting business model, charging people for things that aren't happening. You sure you guys aren't actually just selling really, really expensive air? Bluebos let out another defeated slurp. I told you this would catch up to us someday. Step 3, Harrison continued, eyes locked onto Zervex 9. We apply good old-fashioned economic sabotage. Zervex 9 jolted upright. What? Sergeant Morales grinned. Oh yeah, that's the fun part. We just submitted a Class 5 financial fraud claim to the Intergalactic Banking Consortium. You know, the people who handle all those juicy planetary accounts you've been skimming off for centuries? Zervex 9 felt his stomach turn to ice. You didn't, he began. We did, Morales confirmed. And since we included proof of fraudulent invoices, misappropriated funds, and, this one's my favorite, a literal shell company called Interdimensional Threat Simulation Holdings LLC, the banking consortium's gonna freeze all your assets until a full investigation is complete. Zervex 9 shot to his feet. You cannot do this. Harrison exhaled slowly, then stood to his full height, towering over the alien bureaucrat. He cracked his knuckles. He smiled. We just did. Zervex 9 whirled to his panicking subordinates. Do something! Bluebos made a miserable gurgling sound before flopping forward into a gelatinous puddle of despair. Another UPL official, a bird-like alien with 5 beaks, tapped furiously at a holographic datapad before emitting a horrified squawk. Sir, their financial report has already gone viral on the Galactic net. Every planetary government in our jurisdiction is demanding an immediate refund. What? Zervex 9 practically choked. No, we don't do refunds. They're saying we either refund them or they're taking legal action. Zervex 9's eyes darted back to Harrison, who now had his arms crossed, looking incredibly satisfied. You savages, Zervex 9 spat. You actually read the fine print. No species has ever done that before. Connors shrugged. Yeah, well, maybe they should have. Morales was now gleefully watching the chaos unfold. Oh man, this is beautiful. Some alien senator from Varnox 3 is already calling for a vote of no confidence in the UPL leadership. Your stock price is tanking. Zervex 9 grabbed his own datapad and frantically pulled up the latest financial reports. He watched in horror as the UPL's corporate value plummeted in real time. We can negotiate, he tried, voice desperate. Surely there is a number we can agree upon. Harrison rolled his cigar between his fingers. Oh, there's a number. Zervex 9's eyes lit up. Yes, name it. Harrison leaned in. 0. Zervex 9 recoiled as if he'd been slapped. Zero. 0, Harrison confirmed. That's how much we're gonna pay you. Forever. Zervex 9 gasped, his many limbs trembling. You monsters. Monsters, Harrison snorted. Buddy, we're the United States Marine Corps. You thought you could come here, scare us into signing some BS protection contract and walk away with our money? He chuckled. You didn't just pick the wrong planet. You picked the wrong species. Zervex 9's head snapped toward the rest of his delegation, who were now visibly trying to sneak out of the room. Don't you dare leave me here, you cowards! Morales checked his tablet again. Oh, bad news, buddy. Looks like your financial accounts just got frozen. Zervex 9 felt his stomach drop into a black hole. We can fix this. We can fix this. It's just a little bureaucratic setback, nothing we can't... Oh, it's not just a setback, Harrison said, picking up the UPL contract and dramatically tearing it in half. It's a declaration of war. Zervex 9 staggered back as Harrison grinned. And let me tell you something, pal, Harrison said, cracking his knuckles. No one wins a war against marine paperwork. The intergalactic scam was about to come crashing down, and Earth was just getting started. Zervex 9 had lived through several financial crises in his long and illustrious career of intergalactic fraud. He had weathered the great overbilling scandal of Tralvex 12, narrowly escaped prosecution during the Sector 88 kickback investigation, and once even had to dissolve an entire shell corporation overnight to avoid a particularly nosy auditor from the Andromedan Tax Authority. But nothing had prepared him for an enemy like the United States Marine Corps. Harrison, Connors, and Morales were tearing through the UPL's bureaucratic defenses with the kind of ruthless efficiency that Zervex-9 had only ever seen in hostile corporate takeovers. His entire empire of fraudulent security contracts, absurd service fees, and theatrical alien threats was unraveling faster than a politician caught on a hot mic. "Sir," croaked Blue Boss, still in the process of slowly melting into the floor. We're getting incoming calls from everywhere." Zervex-9 barely managed to pry his hands from his forehead. "Define everywhere," Blue Boss whimpered. "The Dianax Banking Guild is demanding an immediate explanation for the funds freeze. The Pan-Galactic Trade Commission has launched an investigation, and the Zarnathian Consortium of Lawyers just sent us an automated message saying, and I quote, 'Oh, you're so screwed.'" Zervex-9 groaned. "Tell me something I don't know, Blue Boss." Blue Boss made a wet gurgling sound. The Marines just launched an audit bomb into our system?" Zervex-9's head snapped up. "A what?" Blue Boss's gelatinous body trembled. "An audit bomb. A full-scale, military-grade financial review. They submitted thousands of information requests simultaneously to every department we have. They're demanding receipts, actual receipts." Zervex-9 screamed. Meanwhile, on the other side of the room, Harrison casually kicked back in his chair, flipping through a holographic datapad as if he were reading the sports section. "Hey, Connors, did you see this? Looks like they charged the planet Glithok 7 a strategic hyperdefense administration fee for 10,000 years in advance." Connors nodded, smirking. "I also found an itemized charge for emergency bureaucratic expediency services, which is just a fancy way of saying, bribe us or we'll take forever to process your request." She turned the pad so Harrison could see. "They even charged extra for premium paperwork acceleration." Harrison let out a low whistle. "Damn. Even our government wouldn't be that ballsy." Across from them, Zervex-9 let out a strangled gasp. "You are tearing apart the very foundation of the UPL," he shrieked. "That's the idea, buddy," Morales said, not looking up from his screen. "Speaking of, I just found their Emergency Contingency Evacuation Fund. Turns out it's just one guy named Carl who has all the money in an offshore account." Zervex-9 twitched violently. "Carl was supposed to be a secret." "Well," Morales said, tapping his tablet, "he's not anymore." Zervex-9's hands trembled as he activated his emergency holographic interface. He had one last hope. The Supreme Administrative Council of the UPL, the highest governing body of the entire Universal Protection League. Surely they could stop this madness before it got worse. The hologram flickered to life, revealing a circular chamber where 12 of the most powerful bureaucrats in the galaxy sat in overly elaborate chairs, wearing even more ridiculous robes than Zervex-9. "Chairman Zervex-9, intoned Supreme Administrator Harlock III, a floating orb of luminescent energy that had somehow developed the galaxy's most punchable voice. "Why are we receiving distress signals from every financial department in the League?" Zervex-9 took a deep breath. "Esteemed administrators, we have encountered an anomaly. The Earthlings, specifically their military, are systematically dismantling our financial infrastructure through weaponized bureaucracy." Silence. Then, Supreme Administrator Volcor, a reptilian being with far too many medals for a creature that had never left his desk, narrowed his slitted eyes. "They are auditing us?" "Yes," Zervex-9 cried. "They've exposed our simulated threats. They've hacked our banking networks. They are asking for receipts." Gasps filled the chamber. Administrator Silvana, a sleek, feline-like creature with gold-plated claws, leaned forward. Wait. You're telling me they're not paying?" Zervex-9 clenched his fists. "Not only are they not paying, they're demanding reparations." The chamber erupted into chaos. "What kind of monsters are these?" No civilization has ever questioned our invoices before. We must retaliate. We must drown them. In paperwork. I suggest we classify them as an existential threat to financial stability. Zervex 9 watched, horrified, as the most powerful bureaucrats in the galaxy completely lost their minds. Then, Supreme Administrator Harlock 3's orb of energy pulsed ominously. There is only one solution. We must send a cease and desist order. More murmurs of agreement. Zervex 9 brightened. Yes, a legally binding galactic cease and desist. That should stop them. At that exact moment, Morales' tablet beeped. Oh, look at that, Morales said, smirking. We just got a cease and desist order from the UPL. Harrison picked up the tablet, squinting at the document. He paused. Then he laughed. Then he laughed harder. Then he howled with laughter, slamming the tablet onto the table. Oh my God, they actually think this'll work. Connors picked up the device, reading the legalese. Wow, they really don't know who they're dealing with. Morales nodded. So, do I tell them? Harrison wiped a tear from his eye. Oh, absolutely. Morales turned back to the stunned UPL delegation and grinned. See, the thing is, the moment you sent that cease and desist, you officially recognized us as a legal entity in your jurisdiction. Zervex 9's eyes widened. That means, Connors continued, we can countersue. Zervex 9 let out a broken, wheezing sound. No, you wouldn't. Oh, we so would, Morales said, tapping a few buttons. And look at that. We just filed a class-action intergalactic fraud complaint against the UPL. Zervex 9 watched in absolute horror as his holographic interface lit up with an onslaught of legal notifications. He opened one at random, Intergalactic Court Case, 9387 Alpha X, United States Marine Corps versus the Universal Protection League allegations. Fraud, extortion, false advertising, unlawful galactic taxation, general financial shenanigans, trial date, immediate judge, assigned, Chief Magistrate Borlak of the Intergalactic Supreme Judiciary penalty if guilty, total liquidation of assets, forfeiture of corporate holdings, and a very public humiliation ceremony. Zervex 9 screamed. Harrison casually leaned back, smiling like a man who had just watched his least favorite IRS agent trip over a curb. Oh, buddy, he said, taking a deep breath. You have no idea what you just started. Zervex 9 had always considered himself a survivor, a master of deception, a grand architect of intergalactic financial schemes. He had built an empire on the simple principle that no civilization was willing, or even capable, of questioning his organization's authority. But now, as he sat inside the cold, metallic courtroom of the Intergalactic Supreme Judiciary, he had to face a painful, gut-churning reality. The United States Marine Corps had dragged the Universal Protection League into a full-scale legal war, and they were winning. The courtroom itself was an architectural nightmare, an impossibly vast chamber floating in the void of space, with gravity-defying pillars that served no actual purpose other than to look intimidating. Thousands of representatives from different planets had gathered to witness the trial, many of them furious over the recent financial revelations. Massive holographic screens broadcasted every detail of the proceedings to the galactic public. At the front of the courtroom, presiding over the trial, was Chief Magistrate Borlak, a towering, six-eyed reptilian being with the patience of a war-weary bureaucrat and the temperament of an old-school drill sergeant. He adjusted his judicial robes, glared down at the defendants, and then turned his gaze toward the prosecution. And there, standing with absolute confidence, arms crossed, cigar still clenched between his teeth, was Captain Jack Bulldog Harrison. To his left, Lieutenant Sarah Connors was meticulously flipping through a stack of documents that, despite being digital, somehow still looked intimidatingly heavy. To his right, Sergeant Frank Red Morales was casually sipping a cup of coffee, his tablet already loaded with every legal precedent, contract violation, and financial crime the UPL had ever committed. Zervex 9 swallowed hard. This court, boomed Chief Ice, Magistrate Borlak will now hear Case 9387 Alpha X, the United States Marine Corps versus the Universal Protection League. A murmur ran through the crowd. Everyone in the galactic community had heard of the UPL, but no one had ever dared to sue them before. Borlak narrowed his 6 glowing eyes. Captain Harrison, you may present your opening argument. Harrison stepped forward, adjusting the lapels of his dress uniform. He took his time, just enough to make Zervex-9 sweat, then cleared his throat. Your Honor, he began, the United States Marine Corps believes in many things: integrity, discipline, and most importantly, not getting scammed by a bunch of bureaucratic space grifters. Several planetary delegates chuckled. Borlak banged his gavel once, but even he looked mildly amused. Harrison continued. For centuries, the Universal Protection League has extorted planets across the galaxy with their so-called security services. They claim to offer protection from threats that, as we now know, do not exist. They have charged civilizations trillions of credits for these fraudulent services, issued bogus invoices, and worst of all, he held up a datapad. Tapping the screen, a massive holographic projection appeared in the center of the courtroom, displaying the most damning evidence of all. A video, a behind-the-scenes recording from the UPL's Threat Simulation and Galactic Public Relations Department. The footage showed a group of alien employees in cheap-looking monster costumes rehearsing their attack on a fake planet. Some were struggling to put on their rubber tentacles. Others were adjusting the settings on a fog machine labeled Extra Scary mode. The entire courtroom went dead silent. Then, chaos, outraged voices filled the chamber. Representatives from countless planets shouted accusations. You lied to us. We paid for real protection. Those bastards stole an entire planetary budget for this. Is that a foam costume? Zervex-9 shrank lower in his seat. Harrison let the uproar go on for a few moments before raising a hand. Ladies and gentlemen of the court, he said, his voice dripping with confidence. This is the organization you've been trusting with your planetary security. Borlak rubbed his temples in visible frustration. Chairman Zervex-9, he growled, do you have a defense against these allegations? Zervex-9 jumped to his feet, desperate. Your Honor, this is all a misunderstanding. The galaxy needs our services. Without the UPL, who will provide intergalactic security? Chaos will spread. Civilization will... Harrison smirked. Oh, we're so glad you asked. Morales tapped his tablet, and a new holographic projection filled the room. A detailed, fully operational plan for the Galactic Security Alliance, Earth's real security force. Unlike the UPL, this new alliance actually provided military defense. It had real response teams, actual combat ships, and, most importantly, it didn't charge planets for nonsense fees like existential threat management or subspace paperwork expediting. Borlak raised a brow. And you're saying, this organization will replace the UPL? Oh, absolutely, Harrison confirmed, and we'll do it for a fraction of the price. The uproar in the courtroom grew deafening. The planetary representatives weren't just angry anymore. They were furious. Planets that had spent centuries paying the UPL's outrageous fees now realized they could have been getting real protection for almost nothing. A senator from the Varnox system stood up. This fraud cannot go unpunished. I demand that the Universal Protection League be dismantled immediately. A representative from the Andromeda Compact shouted, I second the motion. Borlak raised his gavel. Motion received. He turned to Zervex-9. Chairman, do you have anything to say in your defense before this court renders its judgment? Zervex-9, now a broken shell of an alien, slumped forward. His entire empire, his entire life's work, was crumbling before his very eyes. He had no options left. I'd like to plead for mercy, he whispered. Borlak's 6 eyes glowed. Denied. He slammed the gavel. The Universal Protection League was officially dissolved. Zervex-9 and the entire UPL Executive Board were sentenced to house arrest in luxury accommodations on a remote moon with limited Wi-Fi and mandatory accounting classes as punishment. The galaxy celebrated. The Galactic Security Alliance was formally established, providing actual defense for civilizations in need. And, back on Earth, the United States Marine Corps added a brand new motto to their doctrine: death before dishonor, fees before fraud. As for Captain Jack Bulldog Harrison, he simply grinned as he left the courtroom, slipping his cigar back between his teeth. "Another day," he muttered. "Another scam shut down." The Marines didn't just win wars, they won audits, and the galaxy would never be the same again.